Hi, my name is David Eisenbach, former candidate for public advocate. This is John Burnett, former candidate for New York City Comptroller, and Manny Alicandro, former candidate for public advocate also. And we're talking about real New York issues. What's your problem?
So my big issue is what I call today, where are the real New Yorkers? I don't mean like people who like came here from different places. What I'm talking about is like people who used to care, right? If they cared, they would tell you. Remember Ed Koch? We all loved Ed Koch, right? What was his motto? How am I doing, right? If you went up to Bill de Blasio today and you told him how you felt, he would think you're crazy. Bill de Blasio thinks he's doing a wonderful job, but we know he's not, right? I'm worried that in this society we live in right now, people feel very reluctant to express their opinion. We all know what's going on, right? We know the quality of life has really gone down dramatically, like the subways, homeless, all that. We could spend hours and hours talking about that, but what really is pressing to me is where are people in terms of their passions, in terms of what's going on in the city right now? Why can't people express themselves? They think they could change things or change the world. They protest at City Hall about plastic. Are they really moving the needle on plastic? But what about homeless? What about real estate? What about the economy of New York? What about transportation? People are like waiting 40 minutes to take the subway. They don't say anything. I think they're very reluctant to express their opinion because they're worried about how people are going to take it. They're worried about how people in society are going to view them. They're worried about losing their jobs. They're worried about losing their standing in society. I have a big problem with that. What do you guys think?
I actually agree with Manny. You know, there's a lot of issues going on around New York City. Let's use NYCHA for an example. You know, I was born in the pink houses in Brooklyn, and you know, there's still smelly hallways and things of that nature, right? And even though we have social media, right, people actually have more tools and ways to express that discontentment. It seems like the mainstream media, it seems like people are voicing some level of frustration, but they're placing more of an emphasis on things like climate change. Things like, you know, making sure that you recycle the right level of plastic, making sure they get more angry over plastic straws than they do the living conditions, right? You know, there's no way a mayor should get away with, you know, individuals losing heat, hot water,
Brown water. That
right?
water's rusty.
Brown water in some locations, right? We should be up in arms about things that are going on right here in New York City, but they're more excited and more enraged over things that are happening at the border. It makes no sense. And people, I think, that are conditioned not only on college campuses, but also just in the general electorate. There's almost like a silent rage. And why do I use silent rage? Is because if you listen to certain conversations or have certain conversations at a restaurant, at a cafe, small venues, you hear the frustration. But yet, when you look at social media, when you look at town halls, when you look at the community board meetings and other things that are going on around the city, we don't hear the level of outrage as we should. Now, it may sound like I might push back on Manny a little bit, but I do recall, you know, as a kid growing up, I thought the graffiti was the way of life, right? Because you saw it everywhere. Subway, walking through the hood, so to speak, you saw it everywhere, right? People were disgusted with it, but at a certain point it became normal until someone said no, had shaken us up and said, no, this is not normal. We need to care about New York, and we need to make sure that we hold government accountable.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to bring back. It's unacceptable to have people defecating in the street and in the subway. It's not acceptable to have this level of homelessness. It's almost like, oh, they talk about affordable housing, they talk about level of homelessness, but they don't talk about the level of affordability. Right? That led certain people to be homeless. So it's almost like it's more cosmetic than real practical solutions.
And this gets to the heart of my problem as a Democrat with Bill de Blasio. And really any New Yorker, right, who knows that we have record displacement, record homelessness. And his solution is to build luxury towers, mainly in neighborhoods of color, which results, as he claims, in some affordable housing, but not affordable for the residents in those neighborhoods. And then the landlords in those neighborhoods jack up the rents to force out long-term residents. Bill de Blasio is working in cahoots with the Real Estate Board of New York. And he wants to get rid of old-time New Yorkers in favor of newcomers, high-income newcomers. And that's one of my problems with what's going on.
The mayor is supplanting, real New Yorkers, so to speak?
That's what he's doing. He doesn't care about Chinatown. He cares about real estate getting rid and getting of the Chinese from Chinatown. That's what's going on when they are building these towers in Bed-Stuy. Right? These towers that, I've been working with a local activist to stop these towers, which are going to cast shadows across the Brooklyn Botanical Garden, right? What's going to happen when they build these towers? Not only are they going to cast shadows across Brooklyn Botanical Garden, but the landlords in the surrounding area of Bed-Stuy are going to jack up the rents.
But do you think it's a combination of different things? Like people are more concerned with the stay woke movement, so to speak, or to latch on to what's the hot topic of the day, opposed to making sure that we bring in diversity of thought, right? Let's use the Rikers Island shutdown as an example.
Sure.
Right? They're looking at, okay, they'll be closer to home, access to this, access to that. Yes, there are some safety issues, but when you look at it economically, working class people, my parents didn't go higher than the 8th grade. Right? Wow. They didn't have a lot of high jobs. I think my old man didn't make more than $25,000 a year. Right? They had 7 kids. I'm the youngest of 7. I'm the baby, the last one, so to speak. But they had dignity of work. They did lower end jobs until they can, get promoted higher. But they knew how to support the family and save a nickel or two. And they did that. They bought their first home in the mid-1970s, right? But when you look at it, there's a lot of people like that today, struggling working class. The last thing we should do is put a detention center, a jail, if you will, in middle-class neighborhoods of struggling individuals that's only going to bring their property values down, right? And cap the capital appreciation on those homes. And many times when you look at the working class, that's their windfall, right? That's their means of passing generational wealth.
You're absolutely right.
That's right.
That's killing the working class.
The focus is wrong with regard to these local prisons with Rikers Island, right? The one main statistic we should be focusing on is recidivism. We do not want people to commit multiple crimes. What can we do as a society to train people, to teach people not to commit crimes? By decriminalizing things and shutting down Rikers Island, creating local jails is totally bogus. It is not going to affect recidivism. What's going to happen is people are going to be on the streets. They're going to do things that they know they can get away with, unfortunately, and they're going to make neighborhoods that are safer more dangerous. No one's going to benefit from that. It's not a good idea at all.
Let me tell you, Manny. If they build these new jails, they'll have to fill the jails.
Exactly.
And each one will have its own culture.
Oh my God, we got an Amber Alert here.
You must have hit on a good point.
Anyway, sorry, man.
That's all right. So they need to fill these jails, and they're going to fill these jails with people that are going to pose a threat to the local neighborhoods. The same thing with these homeless shelters, right? The city is essentially concealing the identities of individuals. Why? Because they could be on lists where they're sex offenders. Okay, so if it's a 200-man shelter, do we know who's moving into the community? There's schools close by. There's kids going to school, waiting for the bus. I mean, what is the point of this? That is not addressing the problem. That's not addressing the homeless problem.
That's the reason why we need to have diversity of thought.
Exactly.
It can't be a monolithic society in terms of thought, in terms of everything else. We have to embrace diversity, but, unfortunately, the side that proclaims themselves to be tolerant or diverse are not really diverse when it comes to solutions.
We have the thought police. It's you either think this way or you're wrong. And if you don't think this way, then you're wrong. And you don't want to hear the other side of the story. I mean, learning to be a lawyer and going to law school, you always take both sides. That's how you learn. And the best defense is knowing what your opponent is going to say and learning how to negate that argument. Unless you listen. It starts with listening.
True.
What we're all doing here is talking to each other and listening. We might have different political point of views, but we have a lot more in common than people would think because
Right.
we listen to each other. So it starts with listening, hearing each other out. There's no rational discourse. People are attacking each other and they get shut down. They can't get past the first comment, the first thing they say.
I think listening is important, so let me cut you off right now.
There you go. With that being said,
So what's the solution here? How do we get back to the old New York?
Well, the solution is having more conversations like this, and this is what this podcast is all about. It's having these conversations, Republicans and Democrats together, working out the solutions for real New York.